Item with special items is the Police Oversight Review Board, an update. Dr. Caesar?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So this presentation is an update to the community engagement sessions that we have, but just to give you some background, on May 21st, there were models that were presented, and there were three options: the Police Oversight Board, which was about investigations and subpoena power, the Police Review Board, which was advisory, and then the Office of Citizen Advocacy, which was an internal board. The steps that were identified to council, identified by council, I see you've got the packets coming around. This is a revised final report, and it just updates some typographical errors, but the content is virtually the same. Okay. After that presentation, council made some recommendations to add a fourth option of a hybrid model with the Office of Citizen Advocacy and a 3 to 5 person board. Also to explore an enhanced internal affairs process, and then to conduct a community engagement process to obtain resident feedback. So the report that you are going to get information on today is that community engagement plan. The initial plan was presented on September 3rd and also October 5th with revisions. And here are the locations. There were 6 sessions conducted in each of the districts. And here's the participant data. So we have the locations, the resident participants, and also Raleigh police participants at each session. So the total number of attendees at all of the sessions collectively was 191 participants. That's a relatively small sample size. We consider that we're a city of approximately 500,000, and so we've got 191 attendees. The session began with a presentation, and it was exactly the same presentation that was given on May 21st at the council meeting. The pros and cons for each type of board was outlined, and also eligibility criteria, roles and responsibilities for those interested in participating in the board. Data was collected through roundtable discussions. The sessions were hosted by the Raleigh Human Relations Commission, and they served as facilitators and scribes. But the 4 questions that were discussed at the tables were as follows. We asked participants to describe their ideal community. We asked them, does Raleigh need a review board? Why or why not? And then in your own words, describe the goal of the police review board. And then, do any of these options make sense for Raleigh? What you see here is a cycle, and these are all the themes that came from the data. The top 2 being the ones that showed up the most. Number 1 is transparency, and the second one is accountability. Then you have trust, communication, mutual respect, equity, and safety. The way it seems that the comments went, all of the other options, 3 through 7, are a direct result of 1 and 2, with some leeway with communication kind of being a mitigating factor. What you'll see when you see the responses is that number 1 was the most important theme, transparency. Residents want to understand the process, and they want to know what's going on with investigations in real time. The first question was to describe your ideal community. And so we've got this little hodgepodge of words. And really, folks wanted a welcoming, equitable, safe, respectful, and supportive community. And throughout all of the sessions, it was the same thing. Everybody wanted the same thing. The second question was, does Raleigh need a review board? Why or why not? These are the responses for those who answered yes. As you can see in each of the blocks, trust, accountability, transparency, accountability, these are the general themes. I'll read a couple of these direct quotes. Under trust, Yes, there needs to be checks and balances that provide a bridge to increasing trust. And then under accountability, put police departments in its place to serve citizens. Citizens need a way to evaluate service being provided. A review board will be a means to do that. For those who answered no, trust, accountability, and communication. And I'll go with communication for this one. No, understanding of major IA process in place now. So what they're saying is the community needs a better understanding of the current IA process. They need full disclosure, enhanced transparency, and then we can build trust. So it's about education. The third question was to describe the goal of the police review board. And 3 themes came out of that question. The first goal being relationship building and community relations. I'll read the second quote. To repair social relationships of the greater community, to validate the good work of the police department, and then also to enhance community relations. The second goal was transparency. There are breakdowns and barriers to trust and communication when we don't have transparency. And then the third is accountability, to ensure that citizens know that the police department is being operated equitably and they're being accountable. There was also some mention multiple times to this idea of sharing power. There should be some way to share power between the community and the police department. Number 4, do any of these options make sense for Raleigh? You can see the number of responses for each. 22 for police oversight, 8 for the review board, 8 for citizen advocacy, and then other. Other is a wide variety of things, from maybe a model that's not currently up here, some other means to achieve this desire for transparency and accountability. It was just a variety of different things. In your report, you have the raw data, so you can see all of the responses that residents have suggested. The final question that folks were asked on the way out is, what does council need to do right now? And from that list, we identified biggest opportunities for the city. The first is being to educate the residents on the current IA process, as well as RPD policies and procedures. 2 is to focus on improving police-community relations while sharing power and safety and responsibilities in the community. And then the ongoing need for racial equity training along with mental health first aid. There's also recognition that police officers need more support for their health and well-being, and that the community needs to be included in decisions and actions that impact them directly. Community members expressed a real desire to continue the dialogue and to build an equitable relationship with the Raleigh Police Department. In terms of a conclusion, there's no one model that met everyone's wishes. Everybody had a different idea of what they expected, but there was a strong desire from the community members that council should do something to address the issues of transparency and accountability in the form of some type of review board. And that's the end of the update, and I'll take your questions at this time.
Are there any questions?
I just have one question. In the conclusion, the last 2, when it says the community wants to be included in decision actions that impact them directly, and I'm assuming within the background, there's some examples of what that means, or is there a census of what they meant by that?
Right. So the way this was structured is that we took the questions and we took the exact responses that community members made, okay, and we grouped them into themes. And so that is one of those were the top 2 themes. So you'll find that in the raw data. So as you read through, and there's a lot to read through in the report, you'll see that those themes come up, and that should address that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mr. Martin.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few things. I noticed in the photos, and when I talked with folks, that officers were present in a lot of the community meetings. And so I'm curious, as we're looking at the answers, and I think that everyone would agree that we, and you said this in the conclusion, that people are looking for ways to have that dialogue. But I'm curious, as I'm trying to dissect from the data the answers that were provided, were officers also answering the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Both officers and residents participated and gave feedback.
Thank you. And my second question is, of the 191 people that attended, it looks like only 86 responded to the questions. Do you have a breakdown of where it would be interesting for me if there was kind of a race breakdown as well of where the responses came in, so people that were for and against. And, I think that a lot of us are aware of that this is most certainly an equity issue. And so while that data may not exist, I think that moving forward, the more data that we capture, the better we can do our job. And so any way that we can support that effort on your behalf to move in that direction, I'm happy to do. But I think that it's important for us to know where this information is coming from. And to be frank, I want to support at every turn the opportunity for those that protect us every single day to have the ability to sit down and be in community with the people that they're meant to protect. And it's something that I've strived to do in this position, and to get to know the folks that do that work and put their lives on the line so that I can better understand what they go through. But it is a little shocking to realize that their answers are included in this and that wasn't disclosed. So I just thank you for being honest, but that's it.
Are you asking then for demographic data kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. Couple of things. So the count is different because this was a qualitative data collection process. So folks can abstain. If they choose not to answer a question, we won't make them answer a question. It's whatever was documented when we went around. Everybody was given the opportunity in terms of, and I can give you a general sense of police department responses if that's what you're asking. The vast majority of the police officers stated that they were not in favor of a review board. However, there was some recognition that the IA process was something that needed to be communicated in more depth, and also that there's a need to improve police community relations. So again, that's also, you'll read that when you read the raw data packet, and it's very lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, I know that this was the first step too, so I want to acknowledge that. And I think that it is incumbent upon us at this table to support your efforts and to move expeditiously and yet be very thorough and mindful of the various forces at play here, so that we can make change happen, but not at the expense of any one group. So I think that it is ever important that the officers that we're working with them and understanding where the stressors are and the ways that we can support their work so that they can bring their full healthy selves to the table. At the same time, we have to be having those conversations with the community as well. So anything that we can do from the table, saying this to the officers in the room as well, we're here. And I just want to be very transparent moving forward about how we're doing that.
Okay, with no more questions, I'm going to make a motion. This has been discussed for 3 years now, and I know there's been a lot of frustration within the community about a lack of action. So today we're going to take the first step. First, I'm going to make a motion. This is 3 parts, or at least 3 sentences. First is to create an advisory board that will be charged with policy and procedural oversight and help the RPD build community trust and relationships. We'd also ask that this board use the themes that were outlined here as guiding principles to begin their work. The second part, the 5 members will include a mental health professional, a civil rights attorney, a victim advocate, an LGBT representative, and an appointee of the police chief. The third part, we are going to ask staff to determine where it will be housed and who it reports to, this board. And then I'd also like to ask you to develop a vehicle for complaints regarding police, whereby complainants do not have to go to RPD to actually file that. There have been, sources, people feel intimidated. So I can understand that. Let's see if we can find something that's a little more friendly. And that is my motion. And what I'm asking you to do is come back to us at the next meeting on how this is going to be set up and how we move forward. I would also like to ask that anybody interested in serving on this board, I'm going to ask that they send resumes to their city council members, so we can forward those to you for validation based on the 5 categories that I've outlined.
So, Madam Mayor, though that doesn't address all of the things that were brought to us, it is a step forward in working to try to, bridge the gap and address the challenges that we as a city are facing. So I will second the motion.
As I said, this is a first step, and what I am very pleased to see is that people do want to work together. We can't get anything done if we're at odds with each other. So, first step. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That passes. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Sorry, I think both. Okay. Quickly on that, and for Dr. Caesar, I do think that, and you and I have talked at length about this, so I just want to say it publicly, that I think that it is important for this board to be implemented, but I also think that as the elected body, we cannot rely on this board to always do the work for us. And so if there are moments where there's policy brought forth that we know could work, and we've been in touch with the chief and with the community and with staff, I think that it is very important for us to move diligently and quickly to enact that if appropriate, and not to rely on the board to do that work for us. And I know we've talked a lot about that to get to a good place, so I feel comfortable supporting it, but I just want to say that publicly.
Well, one of the reasons why we changed the Housing and Neighborhoods Committee back to safe, healthy, and vibrant neighborhoods, so we could take safety issues and police issues and address them in committee where we're held accountable. So that was the purpose in that from the very beginning.
Mayor, may I just add, I voted in favor and I do support it. I just wanted to add, the conclusion says there's not one model that fits everyone's wishes. And this obviously is not a model that I think is everything it needs to be. I'm supporting it because it's a step in the right direction, and I hope we can continue to do this work. As a citizen, before I was elected, I was tired of this being talked about over and over and nothing happening. So I'm glad we've decided to do something. It's not perfect, it's not everything I want it to be, but it's a step in the right direction, and I support it, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody for their work, and also the Human Relations Commission for the work they've done on this. Okay. All right, next is